Hello, Beam.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good.
Srinath?
You're doing
Good, good. Only three of us.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday.
Hello, Luis.
Hi, Liz.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Luis.
We'll see how many people come up to class today because I know they're going to start their vacations for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, Luis, before you start, right? I mean, before everyone joins and whoever joins in, uh, so the new, sorry, the last week the notebooks that you shared, right? RAG and vector similarity. Um, we didn't go into the advanced, which is it? The building applications with the vector. What is that actually? Vector database, right?
so so in the GitHub, I put two extra ones. So they're like
Okay, sure.
foundational notebooks before doing
Uh,
RAGs.
uh-huh,
So like just getting to understand what kind of vector store do without using an L, like pretty much telling you what to do, what was used before using an LLM, right?
uh-huh,
What do
uh-huh.
people used to do in terms of what are similarities, what are different things like that. So
Mhm,
I left those
mhm.
notebooks for those who are more curious to
Right.
understand really how well a vector store works.
Mhm,
That's what they go through in class because
mhm, mhm.
in the class I just showed you how to use it with vector store. But for those who are very curious,
Sure, sure.
want to learn more, I left those books up there. I didn't modify them because they do require an API key from OpenAI.
Uh-huh.
So you just had to get key from them in order to do those notebooks. So those are
Ah,
just for
okay.
those people who are just curious and
Mhm.
want to get deeper into it. So
Right.
nothing requisite for this class. So
Sure, sure, sure. Mhm.
yeah. So let's give it 2 more minutes. Okay. Well, it's gonna be a smaller class today. That's fine. So I know next week we're having this remind all the individuals we have next week off. Next week is Thanksgiving, so there won't be office hours or class next week. Just give everyone that week break off to get into there. So of course, if you have any questions, just please present them in the group as well. We'll try to answer them as fast as possible. And then the following week after that, we'll have office hour and then the last final class. Just remember this is sort of the second last class of lectures, and then next class what we're talking about is just pretty much having a presentation of this, right? So we'll be doing the first half of this class is getting more into how do we enable AI in our areas. And then the second half of the class will be going through if those who are interested in doing those POCs have questions, want to have some good examples. We'll break out into different rooms, and I'll be able to jump in each room, try to help you all with different kinds of codes. If you need an example of how something's done, we can quickly brainstorm on the spot and come up with different options for you as well. So today's class is more that high level understanding, and then getting that deeper hands-on questions and work from there. So let's begin. So today's class is more focused on how do we enable Gen AI, let's say in our departments or in our areas of work in terms of a very high level area. So we'll be focusing on more of how does this all work inside a company? If you were to say, I want to push AI, and what would that business case look like? What would that strategy look like? And that's sort of how this topic is today. So what is a center of excellence? You may have heard that word before. Center of excellence or pods or whatever you like to call them are areas and where we try to centralize resources, expertise, and best practices into one area. And why would we want that, right? So that's today's question. Why would you want to sort of centralize rather than a decentralized platform, especially on topics of AI? As you see currently, there's different types of companies that have centralized, decentralized analytic teams, centralized, decentralized data science teams, and they're sort of moving people around, trying to understand what's really what's best. And they try to combine and they try to justify saying, well, I need someone who's a SME and know my analytics. I need someone who is understands everything about. I need to know everything about my business part, and he needs to know exactly everything about AI, right? But if you were to do those two things, you need to take someone who has been studying data science for 10 years and then grabbing someone who studied marketing for 10 years, and then you're trying to put those two together because you're looking for that combination. So it doesn't, those we call are unicorns, and if they are out there that does both and have both experience, they're probably a very high level strategy anyways, right? So they wouldn't be looking for medium, intermediate roles if that's what they're looking for, right? And sometimes the business asks for these unicorns to come join the department. It's like, well, I need someone who has both roles and stuff like that. So there has to be some sort of sacrifice if it comes down to a decentralized system, because you're looking for individuals who have both experience or you're trying to catch up to speed in either the marketing side or you're trying to catch up on speed in the data science side. So how can we have something that can help individuals right away and ensure both are working hand in hand? So that's sort of what we'll be discussing at this beginning part. So we know that we talked about AI, it's really revolutionizing industries. It's driving innovation, providing capabilities once thought impossible. It's automating a lot of routine tasks and offer more insights through data analytics. And people are using their positions in AI as leaders in their field. As you can see today, everyone and their cousins are now AI experts or have AI badges on their websites. They throw a simple chatbot on their site and they're considered now AI, right? So this is what's happening, and they think that they're not part of the AI hype. They're not, they're going to be missing out. They can't put into their investors. They're getting deeper into it. So this is where, again, a lot of companies are running around trying to say, okay, how can we do this? How can we jump in? How can we be a part of this? So this is where really I'm going to tell you best practices are currently. And again, things could change as technology changes and advances. But currently, my strong opinion is that a center of excellence or pods really bridges the gap between individuals who are just trying things on their own and really having a centralized location of experts that come and help out in every single area that you need. And point of this group or this point of this excellence is to ensure that all the initiatives are aligning with strategic goals and they're implemented effectively. They're consolidating areas through COEs or innovations and enhance operational efficiencies. So someone just asking the question, what's my opinion? Centralized versus when there's not enough understanding of the ML tech stack and things that can be achieved. So exactly. So this is where I'm saying for myself right now, looking at working with different companies, some of them don't have enough education around AI. They don't know much about the tech stack. They don't know much about understanding, but they're trying. So there's one company I joined a while back that had in their IT department, they were building their own RAG chatbots. And then on the marketing side, they were building their own on a whole separate stack. Some of them were using local LLMs, some of them were building through their own APIs, and they're just all trying to achieve innovation. They're all trying to achieve because they weren't given the right tools to work in. They weren't told that you can be using this to sort of build out your documents or build out this. And again, these people aren't knowing that there's charges and costs for using large GPUs. There's charges and costs for using APIs. So they're adding extra cost in there because again, they're not trained in knowing what is the risks of using this or what are the risks of using that. So they're everyone's sort of doing their own thing, like a wild, wild west of AI, trying to get into it. So how do you really get the most and push it for your department? How do you push it? It's by having these AI centers of excellence. And if you go to your company, let's say you're a head of a department and you can't make large decisions or push decisions in a company, such as CTO or CIO or things like that, what you can do is simply just have your own center of excellence for your department and really become the AI ambassador or the AI pusher for this, so that you can say, let's say you don't have that much influence, but you can have the influence in what you can have to ensure that everyone's aligned to that goal, right? So this is sort of what I just want to have more of a business education, more of an AI strategy conversation. And again, hopefully this will help you. Again, you can bring this up to your boss and say, hey, looking at everything that we have, I think this is the way to go. And I think I could feel like I can push forward doing this to really help the team become centralized and focus our goals in one. And this is where I really, I think could bring the most value for you guys today. So today we'll talk about how to create that roadmap. We'll talk about accessing readiness, objectives, building the team. And whether you're starting fresh or optimizing, there's already a strategy there. How can you optimize the existing effort, right? So really giving you the aim to propel you and your organization forward. So again, going back to what is a center of excellence? So it's a dedicated team or department focused driving AI initiatives within an organization. So going back to what I was saying before, it's a group of like experts who've been trained on the latest AI stack or knows the latest AI best practices, and really gives their expertise and resources to projects that are going on. So they're ensuring that these AI projects are aligned with goals and executed efficiently. So why do something like this? So I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say your department's really excited at trying AI and they're really gung-ho saying we need to find ways to use AI, get it in there. They're like, okay, you would be cool. It would be having something that can just visualize as we'll be talking, and then as we're talking, captures it to text, and then sort of grabs the text and puts it and organizes it in there, sort of like what Copilot does. But we don't trust Microsoft, so what we're going to do is we're going to have our own voice to text documentation, and that's going to be really saving us time of writing. She's like, yeah, that sounds cool. So let's do it. So then you go in there, like, okay, where am I gonna do a voice to text model? How do I and how do I put this into production? Yeah, I could figure out how to do it. But really, in the end, what's really the ROI of having someone just capture your meeting notes? Maybe it takes you only 10 minutes a day to write down what your meeting notes are. Maybe it takes you 5 minutes a day, and the ROI is really small. But because people think it sounds cool, they want to put it as a goal and objective, it's not really aligning to what a strategic goal or a strategic objective should be about. If we're talking about how can we increase revenue as a strategic goal, being to be able to develop your own type of Copilot for voice to text is not really an properly executed idea, right? So how do we ensure that these projects are aligned with these goals and they're executed efficiently? And we'll talk about that later on these other slides. But we have these people who are focused and know really to be more objective towards your ideation or towards these POCs that can look at it and say, well, based off what you presented, it's not really providing a high enough ROI. So can we think of something that's aligned to your business strategy, and can we have something that's aligned that will bring enough ROI to make this useful? And some people don't know is that AI does cost a lot, and this is where people are not taking an account of. Let's say you have like I remember I brought this example in its previous classes. Someone they created this RAG chatbot for individuals to ask, right? Because they didn't trust ChatGPT. So what they did was they created their own chat interface systems, but they didn't allocate any budgeting or any resource spending and monitoring. So they just assumed that everyone would just write maybe 20, 50 questions per month maximum in this chatbot, which equates to probably $50 a department. So they estimated $50 per department. It's going to only cost us $400, $500 a month, and we're okay with that. But they noticed that $500 a month was spent only on one department through one individual who was constantly asking every single day their school homework, their extra assignments, adding things into the chatbot that drove the cost all the way up. So because of usage of one individual, and again, this was plus because there wasn't guards in place. This was because there wasn't any monitoring in place. So again, whoever created that initiative and judgment, again, it was maybe focused on driving AI literacy through the company by having something in there, but did they align with all the things they need to be looking at in terms of an AI framework, an AI strategy, right? And these are the things that brings a center of excellence into question that could really look at a use case and say, well, you aren't looking at this part, not looking at that part, right? So that comes to the second part of we're standardizing processes and using best practices. And getting those best practices in is really important of doing these projects, because someone can really say, hey, you know what, I think RAG is the perfect part for this, because we need to capture all the information in. But really, remember we talked about RAGs and fine-tuning. If you're trying to classify something, you should be doing fine-tuning, versus if you're trying to pull information, FAQs, you should only be using RAG. So then people get confused, like, well, no, I think we can just grab everything and compare it. Like, these are things that, again, individuals who aren't trained on this, individuals who just want to try, could drive cost up because they're trying to store things into vector databases that we talked before last week. But vector databases also have a cost of how much information can get thrown in there. So I remember another example was, there was another company where they wanted to put in maybe, let's say, a terabyte of data into their RAG. And they said this, we're going to use a terabyte of data. We're going to grab everything in there and we'll create a RAG on this. So if you were to think back and say, okay, well, what's the purpose? He's like, oh, we want to have all our documents that are online to be able to be searchable and usable. But if you have a terabyte of data and you're just trying to provide things to make it faster for people to search, the cost of holding a terabyte of data in a vector database, a type of classification, a type of RAG like that, just seems to be, what is the ROI versus of doing that, right? It could be HR policies. Let's say everyone has like over 600 gigabyte of HR policies. It's going to cost you I don't say, let's say $5,000, $6,000 a month to hold that much, all that data in there, and you times that by the 12 months you're there, maybe it's 75,000 just to hold the vector database, plus the API calls that are being hit to it, comes to about $90,000 a year to build this out, where you could have an HR admin coming in at 60,000 that's able to answer things and be able to answer them 100% effectively because their job is to constantly just respond back to individuals' requests and helping them streamline the process, right? So it comes down to what is those boundaries and consistencies in those projects, and ensuring that when those projects are thought about, those ideations, it's thought about in a more practical way in terms of costing and what's really providing the best ROI that way, right? Again, we'll talk about efficiencies and project executions for those who are PMs, what are proper ways and things to watch out for while doing AI implementations. And the whole point of it is also to do enhanced innovations. So let's say you have your department and you're not sure about what can be done with Gen AI. So you're thinking about, well, I can do a rag on this and rag on that. But then let's say someone who has been working with AI looks at your data and says, you know what if we just do a text to a text to SQL option for your dashboard, so that usually everyone who comes up and usually asks questions about dashboards, things like that, they can simply just go to your data and ask a question about it, and that can be exported to Excel because we know that's everyone's favorite function. That's really like an innovation that you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do a text to SQL function on our own data. How do we do that? So then that increases the innovation talk of saying, well, you can do that by doing this, you can do that by doing that. A good example of this would be, yeah, so you can do text to data, it could be analytics, but let's say you're naturally querying it. So you're saying, what if you have a SQL database and say it's about sales, who are the top performers of this quarter, right? Just something very broad that you would have to bring a SQL statement of saying date, order by performer, order by top sales, and do your cut. You're actually having an LLM going and reading that and be able to do those proper calculations itself and extracting information to that front end, right? So those are types of innovations or things that, as you want to build out and think about it, to have these AI experts that come sit beside you and innovate really helps and accelerates the process of understanding that. And that's really what the point of the AI Center of Excellence is, to encourage the development of AI solutions and innovations. It also positions the organization as a leader in AI adoption and really differentiates itself in the marketplace. So you can say, I have an AI pod, which really helps individuals all over the departments to really get in there, right? So again, an AI Center of Excellence or pod is really dependent on a couple of things, which we'll talk about. And it's again about how many people are actually in this pod. So let's say you have two or one individual, and it's like, well, let's do something quick and we'll just get like one or two experts and that's it. If you have 12 departments and you only have one AI expert and you're expecting this person to be involved in all your projects, there's not enough bandwidth. There's not enough things of that. So again, we'll talk about later on. You have to ensure that based off your department, based off your company, how can you really get the right amount of people in there, and how can you ensure that it's actually increasing innovation rather than just making a backlog and really stopping the process? Because if you have only one or two individuals in a center of excellence and there's 12 departments, and they're like, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, right? And instead of letting them go and doing it, and you're saying, no, this has to go through the COE, you're actually creating a backlog and stopping innovation because these individuals will only prioritize probably the top two projects for your department, and then like it stops and hinders innovation, right? So it's really right, the right amount of people, the right amount of determination, and really the AI strategy and resources put into this will make this successful or not. So I'll give you an example of one where this is sort of Dell's AI factory, and we'll go through the different things as well in these slides. But I just quickly just want to go about how they thought about their creating their own systems and innovations at Dell. So first they started about with their data. Where's the data being hosted? Where is it going in? And if it's going to be on premise or cloud, right? So obviously this is part of your data strategy. but it's also part of the AI strategy as well, because again, an LLM will only be good enough as good as you have your own data coming in. So, that famous saying, garbage in, garbage out, is really important while working with AI and LLMs of ensuring where is your data being stored and how clean is your data coming in. Then it goes through three different operations: services, ecosystems, and infrastructure. So let's start at the bottom because we'll sort of work our way up. But ensuring that you have the right infrastructure is super important. So again, going back to what LLMs are, data ops, LM ops, um, yeah, yeah, exactly. Thanks, Ubu. And making sure that you have the proper infrastructure going in. And again, this is incumbent of AI. This could be it has to be in any other company that you need to have the right infrastructure of data protection, making sure you have enough data storage, your devices, etc. Right? And that's really the main part of it. So nothing new there, right? On the open ecosystems. So again, we'll go into deeper what these ecosystems are, but talks about make sure you have the right applications being done, right? So again, so going back to, I want to build a POC, but I don't have a framework I can build it in, or I don't have a Python environment to build it if I wanted to, or I don't have access to an API model, right? I don't have these things, so how can I load those into my computer, right? So again, making sure that there's an ecosystem that's available that people can go in, work on these solutions, work on these models, and have the right frameworks and tools in place to make sure they're available. And we'll talk about what these models are. We'll talk about these frameworks as we continue on these slides. So again, going back to the top of this, it's the strategy, right? So um, it doesn't matter if you have this really cool case. And again, this comes to one of this comes to a case where I was working in a company when I early started my career, and I thought I was doing a cool favor I was working for, and I was helping the HR department, the CHRO, and I thought it'd be cool to grab and scrape everything from the glass door of the company and to scrape everything and sort of sort everything by negative and positive sentiment, and then show this as a report to the HR leaders of what could be possible solutions and innovations that could be done, and looking at top failures and really helping that way. As soon as I finished the project and stuff like that, the CHRO came and was like, "What is this? Why are you doing this? No one told you to do this. This is something that's not bringing value. We never asked for this, so can you explain yourself what's happening? Why did you spend your time working on this?" And that made me take a step back, and obviously I took that as a learning opportunity in my career. Is unless it comes from top down, unless it's a strategy, unless it's something that it's involved in part of their metrics, it doesn't matter. You can create a cool solution. It doesn't matter that you think it could provide value. If it's not aligning with what the top heads are thinking about, your solution is pretty much not aligning to what they want, and it won't be as effective, right? So again, this is something that, again, I always push for the top, that if AI strategy is not important push factor for senior leaderships, then you going into there providing these use cases, again, goes to my point of, well, they won't perceive the true value of doing this, although it could bring ROI, right? So ensure that before going in deeper into this, that you are getting involved in that strategy conversations, understanding what's being asked from the top down, or you have to implement and add on the strategy to see if you can get buy-in to continue doing this as well, right? So it's always having those informations in. And exactly. So again, part of the strategy is that innovation, always making sure you're up to date. And if your job is focused on, let's say, technology stack, and you're getting into security operations, or you're getting into DevOps and the things like that, you always have to stay on top of those newest software, newest cases, go join those conferences, right? But the same thing with people who are in AI, you have to be constantly learning. I have to read and learn at least 2, 3 hours every single week of what's coming out there, what's being created, and stay on top of that every single week, because if I don't, I just feel that I'm not looking up to case of what's happening is new. A lot of things I'm seeing right now in terms of being rehashed is, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of it is that a lot of them are saying reflection is sort of new, reflections coming out to models, they can reflect, and that's something amazing. But again, for those who are keeping up with up to date, reflection was something that was actually created a year ago with Graph LangChain, and where you can do graphing of RAG bots and have them reflect and think about before responding. So again, it's for those who actually have to get deeper into it, those who have to say, well, yes, they might sell you this new thing, but this has actually been out a year ago, and I'd rather use something that's more open source, that's been tested for over a year rather than something that's come out just a month ago and they're saying the newest and the latest, greatest way of doing things, right? Um, correct. So what are my go-to resources to keep up to date for AI changes with so much volatility? That's a very good question. So I had to stay up to date one by reading articles. I follow, luckily for me, I have access to Gartner reports that come in and they talk about what the new AI strategy is, what are CEOs looking for, what has been sort of that push for there. So then once I understand, let's say the new AI strategy coming in is for IT, they're looking to do the whole case when Google came out, they saying that more than 45% of their code is being written by AI. It's just like, okay, well, what are they doing that saying 45% of their code? And then I get deep, then it sort of gets me down a rabbit hole of saying, is it really AI writing their code? And I realized it's more like a GitHub code where they're actually just finishing off the last sentences, right? So finishing off the last sentences of their line code. So it's not really writing code for them. It's just helping the coders finish off their line sentences, right? So like, oh, it's just like a autocomplete they're doing for LLMs, but the LLMs have to be smart enough to be able to read their code. Okay, so how are they training these LLMs to read this code? So that digs me down into like those different rabbit holes. But again, I follow top influencers on LinkedIn from AWS, Databricks, people from Anthropic, people from OpenAI, people from Google. I try to follow top AI voices to see what they're working on because they're also part of these releases. Llama Index to me is a huge one as they always try to innovate, try to push new ideas. Always on LinkedIn for me, they always push out something new and innovative that someone built that week and notebooks. And when I have time, I go back and look at these notebooks to see how they built them and go from there, right? So it's always a constant, there's no one thing I look at to sort of catch myself up to speed. If there's something that I need to learn more, obviously there's Udemy courses you can go to and use Udemy to look it up. And there's a lot of different resources from there. So once you have the right strategy, you have the right data, you know what platform you're going to be using to work on, then you can go start working on your use cases and then you can operate and scale, right? So it's really easy just to jump into use case and then how to operate this, right? But there needs to be that background, that backbone system for it to really be a good solution, to be a really good ways of going into it. And we'll talk about use cases later on, but just a quick example of how Dell thinks about their AI factory or AI ecosystem and how it's really important for us to make sure that we have the right tools in place to ensure everyone's successful. So how do we start building this? So how you start building your AI center of excellence is sort of conducting our readiness assessment, right? Usually we bring in people to come in, do evaluations of AI capabilities, but you can sort of do this yourself too. And it doesn't have to be as comprehensive, doesn't have to be at the top level. If you're just doing this for your department, write down what are the existing AI initiatives from the top down, what are the tools that are being used and how many folks actually have expertise in these areas, right? This will start giving you that starting point of your AI journey. If you only have one or two individuals who are really good at AI versus when you have 50 people in the department, you're allowed to use Microsoft Copilot as a tool. And if there's any initiatives going on, then it's really saying, okay, well, I need to build out my own RAG. AI Copilot may not do it, but maybe Microsoft Fabric has something that can help you out, or looking at what are tools that are available to help you build out those initiatives, right? So first is doing that inventory of understanding what's there. And once you understand your inventory, you can then start your point of saying, okay, I have these, and how do I get to where I want to be? That's where you identify your gaps and opportunities. Once you're like, well, I need to have at least 5 AI people. If I want to have them working on 1 or 2, 3 of these top priorities, I need to assign them here, I need to send them there, I need to assign them there, right? So, but this person doesn't have that much experience working in this. I know this person doesn't have that, right? So this is where you identify your gaps and opportunities right after your inventory. Once you're sort of done your gap analysis and understanding what's your capabilities and what are your limitations, then you start engaging your stakeholders and saying, hey, listen, I think I really want to go from point A to point B. I have this what we currently have. This is the huge gap we have. How can we, I really want to achieve my goals. How can we get there, right? And then again, this could be top down. This could be, again, in your departments, talking to senior leaderships of saying, I really want to help the strategy of the business, but this is the gaps I'm seeing. How can we achieve those and how can we fill in those gaps and what resources can we have to fill in ththose gaps? So it could be that they'll come back and say, what, let's do, build out your business case, right? What's your business case of doing this? And this is where you really sit down, and this is where you've already done most of the work already of identifying your current resources, the gaps, and the main goal. And then the main goal after that is to establish those ROI metrics, right? So once you're in there and you start building out your business case, you slowly quickly identify what are short-term goals for your project that you really want to do, and what are some quick wins, right? And so what are those targets and how will they look like? Right after you build your business case of those short goals, you would then do your long-term goals of, now that we're able to identify this, at the same time, we're going to be looking at identifying some AI or new strategies that we can go and develop or pull them in-house to pull this in, right? So this could be developing new products. This could be pulling in new products that could help you achieve your goals. It could be hiring individuals who have such skills and expertise to help you achieve those long-term goals, right? And again, the whole point is to align what's happening in the organization's vision and where you're going in the department, and also what's happening in market trends. So this is the most important part. You could say, yes, I think I want to do this, right? So I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say your company works on WhatsApp, right? And you want something to be able to have built in to analyze all your WhatsApp conversations and pull out metrics and KPIs. And you can build an LLM that can read it and go to it. But we need to stop back and think about, well, what is on WhatsApp's roadmap? Let's say in 6 months from now, they're going to come out with an AI tool that already does that all for you. So you spent 6 to 8 months building out something that in the end, the products that they're building is building something that's even better for yours, and they're doing it for cheaper. Then that really comes and really stagnates your point of, you wasted all this money developing and pushing for these objectives and things like that, not realizing that there could be a product roadmap for WhatsApp that's doing it within 2, 3, 4 months at a cheaper cost. And all you have to do is purchase a small license to extract the reports, right? So again, you have to look at this in a short-term and long-term goals, do a really good assessment of what you're trying to achieve and what are the market trends. And again, I'll just keep pointing to that, is as much as the vision is important in your company, you need to have understanding what is in market trends and how that really lines up to what you're trying to achieve. Lastly is the KPIs, establishing those metrics to measure success. So what is the ROI of the project? What are the project completion rates, and how do you get there, right? So I think I was in the project that I said that 80% of Gen AI POCs do not make it to production. And again, the reason why they're not doing the full SWOT analysis, they're not pulling in the experts, they're not looking at this in short-term, long-term goals. They're not looking at it, how they're measuring success of the POC and how can really, and does the success really outweigh the risks that are happening, right? And again, this comes down to people who are simply just going on YouTube, learning, running it, but then you have to realize that, well, how do I have a stack that can fully capable of this? Yes, you can run it on your computer, but is there really a stack where I can put it, make sure it's working in production? And how can I ensure that I put it in production, it's not going to break down. And what are my risks? What are the frameworks I have built outside? If you don't have those frameworks built, that's really why POCs don't make it past those POCs. It's because it's how do you gap from one to the other? And that's really the measure of these successes. And that's the whole point of having the Center of Excellence is to ensure you have that bottom layer built. So when you start working ideation, it should really be the last middle step before you even happen, right? So that's why it's super important to learn and doing those current AI capabilities. So here's a quick scatter plot looking at probabilities of different POCs that are happening in the real time that Center of Excellences are currently working on. So there's growth opportunities, there's high impact initiatives, and there's complex challenges. So, for example, in routine maintenance, you have something called slower system response time, right? So how can GenAI help in something like that? So it's a very low complexity, low impact. So again, these are things that can still be done with normal NLP, can still be done using metrics. These are things that can be done still with previous tools that GenAI isn't really having that much impact, but could have an impact in the future, depending on what's happening. Versus if I go to high impact initiatives, being able to answer customer queries based off RAGs is really huge impact because again, you're taking time off of agents, you're reducing workload, you're reducing um, that cost for the things and be able to answer and have your agents be able to answer more high important calls is a direct high impact, right? So what are some growth opportunities? It's looking at existing opportunities and what can be done. For example, fraud detection is a big one. And again, current NLP task, let's say for text fraud detection, is that the text comes in, they look at sentiment analysis, they look at current and past words. But what happens in ML is that most of these rules that are being built out are manually coded in to these ML models. Sometimes they're unsupervised models as well. So they may not catch all the fraud detection coming in, right? So if you can fine tune a model on, let's say, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 fraud detection examples and tell your LLM, hey, these are examples of all fraud. Can you help me identify even more cases like this? You can then enhance the fraud detection. Let's say you're at 92% to an 85 or 96% using GenAI. So there is current growth opportunities in that area simply because an LLM is effective reading context and can determine if something is happening in terms of fraud, right? Complex challenges is still trying to understand where can they really help and integrate in terms of this, right? So inventory management and usually in ML you usually have like a price predictor, you have linear forecast, and the ML is pretty much doing this. So how can GenAI really step in that, right? So that comes to a complex challenge of if you're already having an ML model that's helping you doing forecasting and helping you determine these places, right? So how can GenAI help that out? Again, it can maybe be reading what the ML model is pulling out. And again, it goes to the part of can GenAI really read what's happening in store inventories and give a report out of what's happening that's actionable and be done rather than forecasting, right? So again, this is where these are complex challenges that that could have to be in sort of complex and sort of lower on the scale because there's current models that are being done, but again, you have to sit down and think of what really would bring in a high ROI, right? So again, I just left this as an example for you guys. You guys can read the different parts of it, and go to maybe Google, understand a little bit more. How's GenAI working in marketing campaigns? How is GenAI helping in employee turnover or performance assessment, right? And then sort of get the ball rolling and thinking of how to look at this and sort of complexity and solutions impact. So how do you build and who's important of this ACY team? So I sort of put this Avengers picture of assembling your own team of multidisciplinary teams of helping you do this. So the first part of it is you need to have people who can work on these AI models and algorithms, right? So again, the purpose of this course today was to help you get the basics of what normally typical AI/data scientists are doing in terms of when they're told to, hey, you need to build a RAG or hey, you need to build this out, right? These are the people who are going in, building your POCs for you, and they're getting deeper into the code. And I know everyone who joined the class isn't maybe a data science expert, but they want to get, they're interested. And that's pretty much what it is. You need to just be interested and be able to develop it, right? So they're not the main owners of the project, but again, they're the people who are building the code for this. They need to work in hand with AI or machine learning engineers. So they deploy these machine learning engineers will be ones sort of deploying these models in production. They're doing also the CI, the continuous integrations of the code. They're helping putting your environment into a Docker package and putting it into GitHub so it can be run in productions. These are the people who are pulling the data and ensuring that all the information is correct, right? So using machine learning engineers similar as LM ops, it's like AI ops, in which you have the models in production being sent. And you also need an AI strategist and architect before this project starts of how this is going to happen. A data scientist could know what's happening and machine learning know what's going on, but it's really the AI strategist or architect that aligns the projects with the business goals. A person who could bridge the gap between what's the business asking for or really what's that problem, understanding what are those strategic opportunities for AI adoption, and then understand what's the technology landscape. So understanding that, okay, I'll be using this resource, I'll be using that resource, I'll be using this resource. They're the ones who are sort of doing the diagramming. Then they pass it on to the data scientists and the AI engineers afterwards, saying, this would be the best probable solution for this issue, for this problem. Can you guys go in and start building the models right through iterations and testing and making sure that the go-to stack is how it's being built. You have the project manager who's overseeing the AI project to ensure things are running on time and make sure that our budget conscious delivery. You don't want these data scientists to go in there and be running a model maybe on 50 million rows if the point of your POC is to test if something works, right? You can then just do a segmentation 1/5 of the whole data and use that to see how that works rather than running the whole thing, right? So again, if the project manager is to ensure that we're delivering things in a budget conscious delivery, things are being done on time, and then ensuring these conversations are happening between the technical teams and the proper stakeholders. And then going back to the domain experts, the business SMEs, this goes back to the conversation of if I'm in marketing and I need someone who understands marketing to be developing the solutions, how can this happen in versus centralized, decentralized systems? In the COE, the business SME is integrated into this. If they're building generating, they're simple, let's do one POC example. Let's say developing marketing material for clients. The data scientist and AI engineer, they can get the data in, they can work on it, but they won't know the intricacies of what they should be looking for. They can build something that looks good, but it won't be until the marketing SME reads it and say, will this pass our marketing material level? Is it reading a grade 9 level? Does it have top SEO metrics? How is it going from there? So someone put a good question. What does maintaining an AI model mean? And how is it different from traditional models? So in order to run this in production, right, you need to have it being run on a system and to be able to, example, like you're building a product where someone's saying, I need to build out, going back to that marketing side of, I need to build out a report. How can someone submit something and have that being built, right? So you're not maintaining the actual APIs or maintaining the LLM model, you're maintaining your AI productionalized system that you're building out. So another example would be let's say that pizza chatbot. You're not building the LLM you're not maintaining the LLM that's being built, the chatbot, but you have to maintain that chatbot system that someone asks a question saying, I need to order a pizza, and then it just dies out. It's because one, you're not having enough infrastructure. You're not looking at your rate limits. You're not seeing that 500 people are rating that they want a pizza at the same time. You're not doing your loads and balancings. you need to ensure that, and when you productionized your system, you need to make sure that the whole AI system that you created can be maintained, right? And ensure that it's not going to fail when someone asks for a question. That's what I meant by maintaining the AI model that you're sort of building out. So again, it's always ensuring that you also that there are failures in calling APIs as well, right? So you need to have retry methodologies. If you have more than 50 or 100 people asking questions at the same time, and there's rate limits of how many people can ask a question, you may have to do something called API batching, where you have to batch API calls and then ask the model and batches in order to not break the system or not be able to time out and not get the answers that you need to ask your model, right? So that's what I sort of meant about the maintaining the models, and this is what the AI machine learning engineers can help out in determining in that sense. So going back to the business me of marketing, she's gonna go in there, read what the data science engineer tells her. It's like, no, this isn't good enough. It's my SEO optimization that you should be doing in your marketing repeat is not coming up high. You're only getting a 40% optimization techniques. So then the data scientist needs to go back in, maybe do some prompt engineering, maybe needs to fine tune a model of how does SEO optimization looks like, and keep improving that performance while having the business need validate the output of what's coming in. So you're really using the best of both worlds. You're having a business me that knows what they're looking for and what they want to develop, may not have the AI technology stack with them, but then they have someone who has the technical expertise and can guide them through the process of what they're looking for and what they should be having, right? And that's the whole point of having that COE, of being able to have a support group that can look at, and the data scientists like, well, what do you think about adding a quick summary at the top of each article that the LM can summarize and then give it deeper down. And we can do that by creating a separate prompt at the top saying, please summarize before coming down, right? So then the data scientist can give innovative ideas. Maybe the business me didn't know that an LLM can do. So the whole point is having them both working hand in hand rather than having the marketing SME trying to learn how to do build out how to build her own reports. Maybe she can build it out, but again, is she gonna know everything from top to bottom? And that's where really it comes down to the business of um, how much they value this AI innovation and how much they value of having the right and best practices in mind. And this could maybe the COE team could start as a centralized department, and maybe you built the COE team that it trains everyone so much in data literacy that everyone's good enough and can build things on their own, then can become decentralized, right? Now that everyone comes to a certain point of par of understanding what's happening. But at the beginning, to ensure that everyone is trying to do what's best and what's happening, and to really centralize the thing for the company, again, this is where the COE can really come in and really help out. So in order to do this effectively, there needs to be in the COE a sort of a leadership appointed, right? So it needs to be a dedicated leader, or we call an AI champion, that's steering the community. And this AI champion can be a VP, can be up higher, or if it's again doing inside your own department, it has to be either yourself or someone who's very high to the top that's going to help and that's going to be part of steering the right conversations coming in, right? As you're coming in and you're building a COE, your COE champions, like your AI architect, or might come back and say, hey, I talked to finance, I talked to legal, I talked to IT. They're all looking to build out these really cool, innovative AI strategies. Let's look at them and see how well they align with organizational goals and ensure they're actually bringing high ROI, right? Then in the COE leadership meetings, they're having these conversations to really help and prioritize where the top resources can go and what's really going to drive that high impact, high revenue, and really give big wins for the company. So what's really important of this, and say you do this and you're building it out, it's also important to have some sort of executive sponsorship to have on top of it here. Yes, so COE is Center of Excellence. That's correct. For this one. So we're having, without executive sponsorship to sort of champion it, it won't be able to, you won't be able to get the right strategic decisions and necessary support. And the reason why is you can say, well, I know what the strategy is, but let's say the VPs all had a meeting and they're changing the way that the strategy is going to be happening 2, 3, 4 months. And you're focusing on just doing what was being told 6 months ago, and there's a change, right? So having a champion that's one of the executive seniors to come in and say, hey guys, you know what? Let's pivot. I just had a meeting with the CEO. The CEO is now thinking that there should be an urgency in AI projects because they're giving the ROI. How can I support you guys to get more individuals in here, and how can we get this done, right? So with an executive sponsorship, you have a higher lens and higher view of what's happening with the company and making sure they're part of you don't have to be in every single meeting that you have in terms of your COE leadership meetings, but they can provide those guidances, maybe just have those quick one-on-one touch points and every month, just to have and understand that what you're doing is still aligning with any strategic decisions that's happening, right? So again, having someone who's a senior executive to champion the AI COE is really like one of the major points I would say in having a COE. Okay, so we talked about the different roles, how we would have that governance. So there's someone asked the question, what is the line between ML model engineers and Gen AI experts? Well, ML engineers tuning the model for a business case. A Gen AI engineer just needs to hook it up with an LLM to understand and process the user input. Okay, so that's a very good question. So what's the difference between an ML engineer and Gen AI expert? So ML engineers, if we go back to sort of the first class of what's the difference between the different domains and understanding, is that an ML engineers are focusing on creating supervised, unsupervised models in traditional ML and permissional ML cases. Sometimes they do some neural networks, they do CNNs, they work on sort of these neural networks that are the base form of Gen AI, but they're not working themselves on, let's say, transformers. They're not working on building out how an LLM can work or fine-tuning a model of an LLM. Data science experts and ML experts can easily bridge the gap between ML and Gen AI within maybe way faster chance than someone just learning Gen AI from the top, because they already come in with understanding how ML models work. So it's easier for them to bridge the gap to get there. So you can have ML engineers who can be trained to be Gen AI experts, but they first need to be trained to sort of bridge that gap. And the gap for ML engineers is very small compared to someone who's jumping in. So, but the whole key point is that they still need to be trained, just like anyone else needs to be trained on how to use best practice for generative AI, because there's new things in there like prompt engineering is something that an ML expert who's gone in there may not know what are some best practices or know how to input certain guardrails or how to create an engineering flow to get into there. So those are the difference between a big part of this. So Gen AI engineer just doesn't need to hook it up to the LLM. It's actually this Gen AI engineer needs to understand how you're creating your chatbot flow. For an example, if you're doing something to more of a productionalized chatbot, you can't just simply just say, I'm gonna create a QA chatbot, hook up to an LM, and that's it. You need to sort of put input guards in there. You need to have guardrails that we talked about before. We need to start unbiasing the model. This comes back to the developing frameworks and best access of making sure your model is not being biased, fairness, transparencies. If you're working on RAGs, can you change the retrieval methods of doing this? If you need to fine tune a model, you have to understand how to create a training data set and be able to change and how you can fine tune it in a better way than current way as well, right? So there is a knowledge that has to be learned and attained in order to continue doing that from there. Okay, so this is why it's sort of necessary to sort of bridge that gap between that part. And again, just going back to the last part is that ML engineers, it's very easy to sort of bridge that gap to this. So what are some best frameworks? Sorry, just jump. What are some best frameworks and best practices? So again, when you start developing AIs, one thing that you have to watch out for, similar as ML, is you have to watch out for biases and ensure that the model that we talked about before is being fair and unbiased in its decision making, right? So just like similar as ML models, if you give it too much biased information, it will give you a biased answer. And you can see this in certain LLM models. So if you're very interested on how LLM models are biased, there are reports on how each model is sort of politically biased depending on the data. Um, and yes, responsible AI can be measured. There are huge white papers on how to develop responsible AI. There's people who actually study it and get deeper into how to create responsible AI frameworks. There's courses, particularly just on how to build responsible AIs. And this is what really the legal team has to have a responsible AI expert that looks at use cases and comes with with these AI lenses. And we'll talk about how certain companies actually got in trouble because they weren't doing responsible AI, and how the governments were able to start finding these companies by not doing this as well. So there is no systematic automation approach simply because it depends on which LLM you're using, it depends on your use case, and it depends on the country that you're operating in, to do responsible AI. Yeah. So next is after you have these ethical guidelines in place, you have data governance. So what is your data management? What are your security protocols? How do you making sure that as you're running your chatbot in and it's calling APIs, someone can just simply go in there and they start trying to type as much information and try to extract or try to look at the back end of your API calls. And if someone's sending in credit card information and someone's sending in other information, how can they not pull that information out to you from your chatbot as well, right? So making sure you have those right processes, you have the right monitoring in place, and we can go from there. So 5 keys defining a successful AI governance strategy. So I think Sue jumped a little bit, jumped the gun. So we'll talk about what that means. So recent government involvement and data privacy has played a huge part in AI governance to the forefront of discussion. So more than 126 million fines have been issued in connections with violations of the GDPR. So for those who aren't familiar with the GDPR, it is sort of a law rulebook of what information can or not be collected from individuals. And I think this is where certain areas might have issues with, is because as you're collecting your chatbot, you might have some logging, you might have caching, and you might not have a guardrail in place that rejects information that's personal information, right? Someone could say, "Hi, my name is Michael. I want to purchase this product, and here's my credit card." And you know that typically that's not how like a chatbot works. You might have to say, okay, what product you're looking for, what's the price, and from there you might have your PI information protector at the very end of your model. And because someone wrote that at the beginning and you don't have any guards to stop that information coming through, you're collecting it, caching it. That's something against the GDPR lines of being able to store PI information of individuals without consent. And although you might have consent at the far end, like, are you okay with keep your information, just process this, because you don't have it at the beginning, you're collecting it and boom, your company can be fined simply because you didn't do the right governance modeling and ensuring that you're doing the proper strategy. To cover in California, there's the California Consumer Privacy Act. You guys, I thought that would be interesting for you guys to know. This was enforced in 2020 and carries fines of 2,500 to 7,000 for each intentional violation. So again, this is about how is government how you're storing your information in your company, how is it collecting information, are you logging it, are you correcting it, are you doing all this stuff, right? So let's say your chatbot ran for 10,000 individuals and then it catched it. They're gonna ask, okay, I need an audit. You shouldn't have been catching this. You shouldn't have been catching information from these individuals from the beginning. You did 7,000. It's 2,500. You owe us $25,000 just for 1 week of collecting data. And now you did this over 6 months. You now owe us over 12 million, $15 million based off these damages and fines you've been collecting. So having a proper AI governance strategy in place before anything goes to production, before all this things happen, is super critical. Because if you don't have this, it's gonna really, if it depends on the state you're in, really depends on the country you're in, where you collect information. You say you're international, right? That was a very good comments and it's in the chat, so you guys can read on that. But it's really, you have to be really careful of putting something public facing. This is why having things that are internal facing have low risk, are very low risk POCs, low risk productionalized qualities. And understanding that internally, very low risk, but very low reward. Meanwhile, externally, higher risk, but there's a higher reward of lowering that cost, right? So it's always up and down. But if you have a good data governance, it's really going to help. It's really going to help determine and really make your chatbot really more successful. So traditional data governance is you have your data governance, you have your warehousing, your architecture, your quality and management, your security. So how do it fits in? Inside data AI governance, you would have your machine learning model and management. So again, I think there was an ML biased part where they were doing loans, loan approvals, and because people were living, their ML model took in place postal codes inside their ML as a top factor, and were rejecting individuals living off certain postal codes that led to discrimination, and therefore they were fined and sued for X amount of money by having negating people who are just living on certain postal codes rather than looking at each individual individually rather than assessing it, right? So introducing those biases can lead to that objectivity. Same thing with the responsible AI governance. If your model leans, if you allow your model to talk about politics, which is a huge no-no, because each model is trained differently, it could lead to unresponsible governance by making unbiases, having those conversations of like kind of what we talked about the nurse, it's only female, having those type of situations you don't want happening in your LLM, or even capturing information that shouldn't be captured to be part of this, right? So ensure that we have responsible AI governance in place before you start going down to your data warehouse, data architecture, data security. That should be sort of the top house of being in. So how do you have this? You have this as a top-down, bottom-up strategy. It needs executive sponsorship as well as support from individual contributors. There needs to be a balance between government and enablement. So let's say you have a model that's OpenAI, but then next year, the president of the United States comes out and says, you're not allowed to use DeepSeek, which is DeepSeek is a Chinese LLM model that's really good. But if they come out and say, no, you're not allowed to use DeepSeek because DeepSeek is actually going in and stealing your information, then you should be able to have shutdowns quickly, able to switch out and switch up the model that you're having to a new model. And again, be able to understand that these political pressures, these legal things will have repercussions in how your business operates. So ensuring that you have that right balance between someone who's always looking at government policy and what's being placed at your company. Third, it's always ensure that there's good qualities, proper software development needs, and then your model management, right? So continuous monitoring. So there's lots of books based off this. And everyone who's in risk is now considered a risk AI strategy expert. So they're trying to get deeper into the policy reading. So there are things you can read about data governance from a GenAI expert perspective. And it's also part of the MLOps. MLOps, so MLOps is machine learning operations. There's something called LMOps right now as well, or AI ops. There's really interchangeable of what they is, but it's also part of this framework. Okay, guys, we're about halfway done the slides. We'll take a quick 2-minute break for those who get water. I know we went through a lot of material. We're almost done this section, guys. So I say right now it's 09. So let's give us to the 12. Take a quick break so we can just power down the rest part of this. All right, guys, take a quick break. All right, everyone, we are back. Okay, so we'll be having about 20 more minutes more of slides, and then we'll be going out to breakout rooms to simply just go over what's going to be happening in terms of next class of presentations and cool things we're doing. So the next part of having a responsible and COE, pretty much going back to an COE, is having the right infrastructure and technology stack. So there's three layers to a stack, right? So the infrastructure layer, the model layer, and the application layer. So it comes to the difference between having an ML model versus that. Sometimes ML models can simply just run in the background and and be able to run logs and really determine it. But usually most Gen AI products needs to have a forward-facing app to it to in order to work with the model, right? A lot of people won't want to work with code. So you need to have an application layer always to a Gen AI model in order for it to work in a majority of the cases. There are cases where you may not need it at the front end. It's also to log it, but majority will have that application layer. So you need to have something that's sort of a cloud solution. Again, if you have the right infrastructure, you have enough resources in your company, they're giving you 2, 3 graphics cards to run the model. Like you have to make sure that the reason why you have to understand the reason why they're doing it on-premise versus cloud. Maybe it's data privacy, but again, running those huge models will have a higher cost than running APIs. Make sure you're flexible and scalable. You can use platforms like AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure for scalable resources. An example would be GCP, the Google Cloud platform, has Vertex AI, and you want to analyze data. But let's say your company works in the United States, but also works in Mexico, also works in South America. You need to make sure you have those data privacy agreements in place before you can put data inside something like GCP in order to be analyzed as well, right? So ensuring from your AI data governance standpoint, if you're pulling data from a global way, analyzing it, you actually have those cross-border. Sometimes you can't even move the data outside the country to be analyzed. You may need data storage specifically in a country to be compliant, right? So ensuring that whatever cloud solution or platform you're using in terms of getting that data, that can be based off the country governance. You can benefit from pay-as-you-go models. There are ways that you can pay as in a huge chunk in order to save money as well, but mostly I've seen the most benefits. Yes, so we won't see much benefits because sometimes you may not get that much volume in your chatbot. So and it only costs 0.007 cents if you're using GPT-4 Mini. That's going to be a lot more cost effective than thinking you're going to be having so much volume. You should think about when now the grouping of API stuff like that. Once you start getting extremely high parts of that way, right? Okay, next is global accessibility. I talked about that. Ensure that you can collaborate across locations. Control and security. Make sure you have compliance over data compliance. We talked about that in our last one, AI governance. Performance. Ensure you have an area where you can dedicate your resources for these applications. So if you have to have some sort of stack to do this in order to have that part in, that's part of the model layer. High performance computing needs, the GPU, TPU support if you're running your own models as well. But like exemplary for us, we used APIs and we used Google Colab, right? So we're able to run so Gemini is actually like we don't know how big it is. It could be a 400B model or it could have been like a terabyte model, and we don't know how big it is in the back end because everything's sort of secret. But we're able to run those models at lightning speed, right? We're using APIs. And we didn't need GPU, we didn't need high RAM to run all that information, right? But let's say you are using 4 or 5 models and you're loading the models in there, you need to have also that support. Storage solutions, again, this is more for the tech individuals who are in there. Make sure you have the proper SSDs, the proper networking, and making sure you're selecting the right technology stack, right? So this comes down to the proper, where is your AI performance going to be hosted? And are you going to be, what program are you going to be using? Is it Microsoft? Is it GCP? Is it Databricks? Is it wherever to choose your technology stack? That's really what's best for you. Could be in terms of what's already contracted in your company, or if you are doing RFP, do the proper RFP that's going to give you the right proper cost controls and be able to have that proper security when you're selecting your stack. There's data management tools and there's obviously collaboration software when you start building out that DM. So here's I give you guys some examples of what could be used for infrastructure hardware. We talked about which foundational models can be done. Databases, as you can see here, most of these are done to be vector stored databases, right? That can be pulled in. When you're running it, what are you using? Are you using Hugging Face? Are you using LangChain? Are you how are you running your model? In terms of running front end, this is just Vercel because they had this as their main app, but you can run many front end hosting areas, not just Vercel. And also, what is your LM ops area, right? So again, back to ML ops, there's AI ops or LLM ops. How are you doing the model training? How are you doing your model evaluation? Are you fine tuning? How are you serving your model and how are you deploying your model, right? And one cool thing about having a model that's being served as an API, you can then just call this API. You can make your own front-end stack and then just call the API out to get responses from your model and reserve that way, right? So again, these are different things as you go in deeper, other than the GenAI Foundations, more of advanced classes, as how you can serve these models as APIs, or you can serve them as responses, and really how to really push that to production. So what is this AI project lifecycle and how does it begin? So most people just rush in, do the POC, and that's it, that's done. But in terms of best practices, it's always first you have to do ideation and prioritization, right? Going back to what we talked about in the COE, you have those interviews, you have those discussions, you pull them back and say, hey, is it prioritizing with strategic alignments? Does it have enough impact? Is it feasible? And what do we have the data to do this? Once you have your ideas and start it, you can begin your developing your models, right? You develop the model that you want to have, which is when it says develop models, it means creating that it's either that chatbot or is it creating a classification model? Is it creating this? Is it creating content generation? It's not specifically like an ML model, but it's like what is that use case you're trying to do and how you design it. Next, then you have to prepare for it production. Once you pass the POC stage, you prepare how can I change this more to an MVP. From the MVP, you obviously have to be more rigor. You have to put guardrails in place. You have to put certain loggings in place. If it's either through MLflow or any other places that you have, you can sort of have your logs in place to make sure that everything is going good. Once you have your MVP already set, you can then deploy it to your test environment, right? Once you deploy your test to your environment, you can then validate, deploy to production, and then monitor. As you can see here, that everything's sort of an iteration process. And then again, this is part of LM ops or AI ops or ML ops, as most people have a lot of ops of going in, looking at your monitor, and then and iterating on making sure that you can keep increasing and bettering your model each time, right? So ensuring that CI/CD pipeline, continuous improvement, continuous deployment, and ensuring that your model is good. So how do we do this? Again, for those who are more of a project manager based, you can do through Agile and different iterative methodologies. You can do Scrum, Kanban. Most important part is the CI/CD pipelines. So I just quickly put here are what are the main challenges in AI in project management? So the main problem again that most people are having is integrating AI with existing systems. So currently, like I said before, majority of individuals don't have the proper systems to work with. So they're trying to Frankenstein of, okay, if I open up this and I can import my model here, and then I'll try to put the information here, and then you put it in there, but then they realize it doesn't have a proper vector store. So they had to go buy an external vector store connected with an API. And then you're like, okay, well, how do I validate this? Well, I need to buy an evaluation tool in my model. and then they start trying to put things together. So again, one of the hardest part of the AI in project management is they want people to go and they want people to run full steam ahead. But if you don't have the proper tools in place, the number one challenge in doing this project management is that existing integration. Second is ensuring data privacy and security. Most people who are doing this may not know that there have to be some guardrails in place, like going back to the data security framework, ensuring that you have things that are blocking out capturing information that you shouldn't be capturing, information like that. Then going back to there's ethical, making sure you're doing ethical concerns. And the hardest part is then after that is if you overcome all of that, you're overcoming resistance to change. Let's say you created an AI, like an AI sales bot that can help people sell more. And you can have a good summary, you can have it give you some predictions of who could be a good person to overcome, to visit. But a salesperson can read it and say, well, I'm not going to follow this. Like, why do I need to follow this? I know more than an AI can do. Like, it's not, why do I have to come that? Like, why do I have to do this, right? So if there isn't a proper change management or understanding how it's evaluating or how it's being done, it's going to come to a part of overcoming resistance to change is one of the hardest part in that project management cycle. Five is always having a human in a loop. Sometimes you don't have a human in a loop, so you don't know if it's really what's happening with an AI is being valid or not. Ensure there's proper training, cost considerations, and then managing expectations is the last one. So they might think that LLM is going to solve the world, but in project management, you know that there is going to be a matter of factors you can only do at a certain time. So just making sure those who are involved in these AI project managements to look out for these risks that could happen as you run these out in production. So one of the ones that I usually roll out with other companies is pretty much part of the COE is developing an AI literacy framework. So this part of the AI literacy framework is to make sure everyone coming back is involved. So remember we talked about having the COE. The COE could just be a starting point for each company. It doesn't have to be the end all. And you can build the COE coming out to help all those in your departments or other areas really level up of understanding what is AI, how it's being used, and how to really get there. So how do you do this? You do this through internal workshops, helping share what LLMs are, having new ideas. You can also have this put into your LMS systems, so HRs can have GenAI courses for individuals to learn proper terminology, understand deeper into that. Next, you can have hackathons. So let's say in your department, you want to push innovation in your IT department. You can say, using AI, which teams can come up with high ROI cases from this, right? And you create a hackathon over 2-3 days that these teams can work together and sort of get that done, right? Cross-departmental teams to work together to leverage their expertise for richer solutioning. The whole point of this is to also have, like I said before, that stack. Where are the people working on? So you need to have a safe space for them to test new ideas without affecting production. You need to have either a sandbox or a preview environment in which people can work in. Give incentives and recognitions. If they're working on something and they're building it out, in the end, they're not being recognized for their work or they're not doing it, they're going to stop working. They're not going to work on that anymore. And that innovation becomes stagnant, right? And next is you can offer career development opportunities for those who are driving innovation. For those who are getting working and getting deeper into it, that's really great for them to really drive down there, right? So going back to the left side of the sheet is that framework is number one, like I said before, is hardware and software. Know which AI tools to use and when to use them. Information and data literacy, where can people go for more information about AI? Understand how to improve or iterate certain techniques so that you know that I need to use a RAG this and I need to use fine-tuning when I need to be able to use this. I need to be able to use this model for this. I need to use multimodal models if I want to use audio, voice, or text, right? Helping them understand which resources, what area they need to go in order to do this. I won't go through the rest, but I'm leaving that up there. Again, the AI literacy is to really help everyone get up to speed quick and really get the innovation culture up. The major part of a COE is after you've done your innovation, after you've done your ideas, after you've done your literacy, after you're helping build those workshops, you're helping innovate in each department, you're building everything out. How do you really measure that you're actually being successful, right? So you need to track your progress with KPIs, measure the timely deliver AI projects. Let's say it takes 3 months before to run a reg. Because you developed now a framework that's reusable, you can now roll out rags within 1 month versus 3 months now because you developed a reusable framework that marketing can use, finance can use, IT can use, rather than having them go in, invent what's the best way to embed, what's the best way to put a vector storage. You're having a reasonable framework that people can say, hey, if we're going to use RAG, this is what our company's best practices are, and please use this, right? So again, making sure that you can increase those project completion rates, assess what's the ROI of projects as the projects now push to production, what's really the financial benefit to them, and what's the impact, right? So again, continuous improvement, regular reviews, adapting the strategies, and optimizing the process. So how do you know you're mature enough in your company? There's sort of 5 different levels you can view this. So one is if you're really doing this ad hoc and you're pretty much just doing all your POC yourself in terms of maturity in your department or your company, you're at a very low level of maturity level of AI, right? Number 2 is that you're having team projects now that are doing repeatable things. But again, it's based only on team projects that's being sent from the department head, but nothing really defined. 3, when it's actually a defined program. So then you can see that as part of your LMS systems, it's coming down from the top down saying, please enroll in AI, please enroll in innovation programs that we have. You can see them companies are slowly maturing back into that level. Next, it's part of the managed portfolio. AI is now swept into its own departments, onto its own, start building their own COE. They're actually building this out slowly and slowly. Things are being pulled into the AI portfolio of things that can be done, but you're not at the very top left, which is the optimized, is that now that certain things are now in production, how is that continuous improvement? So are individuals going in there now optimizing it for cheaper models, for smarter models? Are they realizing that certain rags that were done in the beginning can now be optimized to work better in certain environments? Are they continuously purchasing better products that support their AI supports? And that's how you really can determine how well your company is doing in terms of AI maturity level. I would say most companies are between 3 and 4. Right now, they're working on defining the programs, getting to that managed portfolio. Very few companies I've seen are actually at level 5, very few. So I would say everyone's still at that 3 and 4 level. So really to go back and define where you think you are and how you can really get them to the next area. So last part I'm going to leave here is some top AI use cases that you can think of when you start doing your ideations of maybe some predictive sales or leading scoring, or is it through CRM? Is it through chatbots and digital assistants, cybersecurity, threat detection, or marketing automation? So again, this is to help you think about when you want to do and what you feel like you want, what you can really bring value in, is really developing something that, again, remember, that's aligned to your strategic company's initiatives. And second, provides that high ROI that you need to be able to do, right? And also make sure that it is, check out the market, right? So again, you want to invent something that's really awesome, cool, but if you're using this on a certain platform with certain data, maybe that data team is already thinking of building something that's already AI out, right? And that's not maybe the best AI use case you can use. And that's it, guys. So that was sort of today's thing. Again, this was more of a business perspective. This is more of how this can be applied in the real world rather than just coding and sitting down to think about how your department works, think about how you want to get deeper into it. And again, this is very high level. This is something you can really break down each of these sections of the COE to probably an hour and a half discussions each. But I really wanted to, in this hour and a half, to go through the whole part of the project lifecycle, the development stacks, things like that as well, just to guys, so you can know that each part is very necessary, and especially the AI security frameworks and then make sure that the responsible AI is really important, because again, as much as you build and love building out these agents, if you're building a pizza chatbot and you're not removing any biases, or you're not removing anything that could be unfair to the individual, it could say something that's not appropriate, right? So ensure that you have those guardrails in places and ensure that someone from legal can say, what can we say or can we not say in this pizza chatbot, and restrict your chatbot to only say those things, right? So, okay. All right, guys, so I'm gonna stop sharing. Now we're gonna go a bit more into sort of breakout rooms. This gives you the opportunity to discuss a little bit more what you're gonna think of what you want to present. So let's go here. I'm gonna create sort of about 4 breakout rooms. This is about 5 participants each room. And I'll be jumping into different breakout rooms to have quick discussions with you guys. So again, speak with when you're in your groups, be able to have quick, maybe just talk about a little bit what you're doing. If anyone's stuck on maybe a certain objects, again, maybe someone has more experience in your group that can give you maybe examples. And I'll try to get to each room. I'm trying to give about 10 minutes for each room so that we can quickly go through each one. And if anyone has any hard questions, I can help out.
I'm sorry, Luis, I think I have missed. What should we do as a group?
So you're going to be discussing what you want to be developing, what you're going to be developing in the next what's good, what you really want to do, if you're helping a team or you're building your own for your capstone project, right?
Capstone project. Okay.
Perfect. So I think I'm gonna click open our rooms. Okay, I think everyone's back now. All right, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us again. It's been
Luis, I have a small note here. Sorry to interrupt you. So, hi everyone. Due to Thanksgiving, we'll be having holiday this Wednesday to the office hours as well as for the next Saturday. So I know we already spoke about it, but just would like to highlight once again. I'll be sending a message in our group as well. Happy Thanksgiving holidays. Over to you, Luis.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Yeah, I was going to add on to that. So again, this was sort of my last teaching part of this course. It's been a really great, it was really fun to build this course again with you guys and work with what you guys wanted to see and build something that's very customizable to what everyone is having. So again, I just want to thank everyone for the process, for the journey of working with me and walking me through these fundamentals. Not this class again. Remember, next week's Thanksgiving, so it's keeping the next one after that is the capstone project. Everyone will be doing 2 to 3 slides of just presenting what they built, what they're looking at, and maybe a small demo if they have it available as well. Or if you can do a recording if you want, and get deeper into it. So again, what I think what we're doing is we'll have the leadership sort of have a Google Sheet of how everyone just break down what their project they're working on and who's under that project. And if individuals, you see a project that you are not sure about, you still haven't thought about, ask to join the team, right? To see the member from the team, ask if you're able to join, you think it's really interesting, and just maybe learn from them as well, right? So again, thank you so much, team, for everyone for your help. And again, if you have any questions, put in the WhatsApp group, and we'll see you
Luis,
not
one quick
this
question.
Sunday, the next one. Yes.
You wanted to like there was thought about next high level courses from you.
Yeah, we'll talk with I'll have to confirm with the VSF team about what they want to do in proceeding on the future courses. But once we know for sure, we can confirm with the rest of the team what that looks like.
Perfect. Thank you.
So any timeline on that?
I think right now Srinivas is sort of away right now. I think he's kind of busy, but once he's back
Srinivas Kota?
yeah. So once he's back, I'll have a conversation about that. And
Is it Srinivas Kota?
yes.
It's
Srinivasarao
Srinivas Rao
Pachigolla.
Pachigolla.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Sorry. Jyoti, please go ahead.
No, okay. It's Srinivasarao Pachigolla. He's in India actually now, so he couldn't join the session. Yeah. He'll be back in a couple of weeks.
So, yep, so once he gets back, we'll have a conversation of what those courses would look like, and we continue from there. So, and plus, it's going to come up with coming up to the holidays, anyways. December, we know that everyone's really busy in September, so if anything, it might be a January start if there's anything from there. So, okay, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys. Remember, if any questions in the WhatsApp group, and we'll work with the team to have that Excel spreadsheet up and going. So, we're going to just put what groups in, what they're working on.
Okay, thank you and have a great
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Happy
Luis.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Luis. Bye.
Thank you, Luis. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Luis. Bye.
Bye.